Okay, it seems a little steady at 30, so maybe Joyce, you can start.
Okay. Well, good evening and welcome and thank you for being with us tonight for our Napa County Board of Supervisors District 1 Candidate Forum. I'm Joyce Kingery of the League of Women Voters of Napa County. Tonight, we are here to help educate Napa County voters by giving you the opportunity to hear from the candidates for this race. While we usually provide in-person forums due to COVID-19 concerns, we are coming to you via Zoom webinar tonight. We are providing Spanish translation via the Zoom interpreter capacity. And if you wish to listen to the Spanish translation, click on the globe-like icon, usually on the bottom right of your screen, and check Spanish. Do you have that up? I guess there was going to be a slide for that. Anyway, our translator for tonight is Dalila Hernandez. We are recording this forum and it will be posted on YouTube, our LWV website, Facebook, and on other social media platforms in about 7 to 10 days. Also, I want to point out that the candidates forums we've already held, which were for Sheriff and District 3, are already up on our website. And that is LWVNapa.com. And you can go there at any time and you get a direct link to the forum. And I want to point out that per FCC rules, no other recording of this forum or excerpts from the LWV recording are allowed. The League of Women Voters is a trusted membership organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We are nonpartisan and do not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. The League does participate in issue advocacy and voter education. If you would like to join us in our work, please visit our website, LWVNapa.com, for membership information and much, much more. The League encourages civil discourse, and the candidates have all agreed to participate under guidelines set for this forum. The candidates have agreed to confine their remarks to their qualifications and issues and not resort to defamatory remarks about other candidates. Microphones and video are off for everyone except the candidates and the LWV forum team. The questions for this forum were solicited in advance from the community and from our LWV members over email. We had an LWV team screen the questions to avoid duplication or anything inappropriate. The candidates have not seen the questions in advance. The number of questions we ask depends on the time available. If time allows, we may take some questions from chat. Our LWV team helping with this forum tonight are our moderator, Bernie Brooks, who is also president, and our timekeeper, Linda Dietricher Yolo. I'll now turn the evening over to Bernie.
Thank you, Joyce. And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the candidates. Tonight, we have the 4 candidates for the position of Board of Supervisors for District 1. We have Garrett Hale, Suzanne Truchard, David Graves, and Joelle Gallagher. This forum provides an opportunity for you to learn about each candidate, and we'll do this by allowing a 1.5-minute opening statement and for each candidate. Then we'll follow with as many questions as we have time for, with 1.5 minutes for each candidate to answer, and then 1.5 minutes for each one to do a closing. Before this webinar started, we picked names out of envelope to determine the order for starting tonight. And we will start with Joelle and then move to Suzanne, then David, then Garrett for the opening statements. And we will rotate through for all of the questions. At the end, for the closing statement, it will be in the opposite order. Garrett will start, then David, then Suzanne, and then Joelle. So just We ask the candidates, of course, to keep yourself on mute when it's not your turn and ensure that you can see the timekeeper screen so that you can keep to your allotted time. And so we will start with some opening statements. And Joelle, 1.5 minutes to you.
Great. Thank you, Bernie. For 30 years, I've been serving the community in a variety of different leadership roles. I have been the executive director of the Farm Bureau and the Great Growers Association, and the executive director of Cope Family Center and First Five Napa County. I'm one of the founders of the Napa Housing Coalition, and I've served on numerous boards, including the Napa Chamber of Commerce and the Napa Chamber Foundation. I'm also a Napa County Planning Commissioner. I have the skills and experience in the two main focus areas of the Board of Supervisors, land use and health and human services. I've collaborated across sectors and know that trusting relationships are critical to doing work that requires brave decision-making. With over 40% of our residents carrying a housing burden, 1 out of 3 households not earning enough to make income, not enough income to make ends meet, and 80% of our workforce commuting in from out of Napa County, we must build more housing that is affordable and assure people earn a living wage. In Napa County, we need to better understand water availability. We need to fund our wildfire protection plan because we cannot continue to endure catastrophic wildfires which traumatize our communities, burden our economy, and endanger public health. Most importantly, we need to support the mental health and well-being of our residents to create a healthy and resilient community. I'm confident that I am the right candidate to serve as the District 1 supervisor, and I hope that my years of leadership and hard work have earned me your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Suzanne, now to you for your opening statement.
Thank you. I'm happy to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm running for supervisor. As background, my family emigrated from Cuba in the 1960s after losing everything to Castro's revolution. Overnight, their property was nationalized and they had to start over in the US with just their suitcases in hand. I grew up in Miami, which, as you might know, is a tight-knit Cuban community that is all about hard work, values, and family. This foundation is what has pushed me and what has helped shape the trajectory of my life. I worked hard and was accepted to Harvard University. My family, coming from humble beginnings, could not afford the tuition. And the community, neighbors, grandparents, aunts, and uncles came together and put me through college. Because my community was there for me, I now find it my duty to give back to my own community here in Napa and serve the people of Napa. At Harvard, I created my own major in healthcare policy and founded the Harvard Health Policy Review, which is now a leading globally recognized publication. I obtained my law degree from Northwestern, from where I graduated with a service distinction, and I have been practicing as a local government attorney for 17 years. I am deeply immersed in the community as a board member of Ole Health and Boys and Girls Club. Within the Latinx community, I provide pro bono free legal services, whether it is a dreamer, a landlord-tenant issue, or any other legal matter. Members of the Hispanic community know to turn to me to help resolve their issues. My background, my legal training, and my experience uniquely qualifies me among all the candidates to understand the complex agricultural, business, social, and environmental issues that come into play in our valley. For these reasons, I ask for your support and your vote on or before June 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. And David, to you. Oh, you're on mute.
My first time on Zoom, not. Sorry. I'm a native of Northern California, and my working career has been here in the Napa wine industry. However, throughout my wine career, I've been very involved in public policy, from the winery definition ordinance to my chairing the Groundwater Sustainability Plan Advisory Committee. I'm running because Napa County is at an inflection point. Our past success is not a guarantee of a secure future. So many things have happened even in the last 6 weeks that call into doubt business as usual. I'm running because there's a rupture that needs healing between many members of the community, the grape and wine industry, and which is the economic and social engine of Napa County. We're geographically at the edge of one of the wealthiest and most dynamic parts of the world's economy. Yet many of the workers whose labor and skill we depend on cannot find a place where they can afford to live. I believe we at the county need to continue to work with the cities on addressing that very serious housing need. It's not a time to point fingers or circle the wagons. Napa needs to work for all the members of its community now and in the future. I think my temperament, my education, my background, and my experience make me the best candidate for the District 1 supervisor seat. With decades of experience, I offer policy solutions and problem solving, not platitudes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Garrett.
Yes, hello, Garrett Hale. I'm a native Napan, born and raised here 54 years ago. And I've been in business here locally for 37 years. I have a tremendous amount of experience in different assets. In construction, I own Pacific electrical contracting. I've been in and out of people's home and have earned their trust for 37 years. Here in Napa, I've owned advertising company here in Napa. I've owned a retail store, been involved in construction finance lending, and overseas I've been involved in mining and currently a general partner in a large solar project. I've been asked to run for county supervisor because of what I know and because of my fortitude in solutions. I'm always about solutions. People ask me, well, what are you going to do about housing? Or what are you going to do about homeless? Well, with the homeless, I've actually hired homeless. I go out, I have no problem going out and talking to the homeless and finding out, why are they really there? Some want to be there, but most don't. And I've had fortunate success, a few that I've helped. I went on, one opened his own business here in town, another went off to China and became an English teacher in China. Regarding integration, I came from a very diverse family, adopted brothers and sisters. My one sister, biological, was one of the first to get married to her wife here in California and bridge that gap. So I understand a lot of social problems here. I understand the Hispanic because of my mom's side. Her family came from the Guadalajara region. So thank you very much for considering me as a candidate.
Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, now question one, and that this time we'll start with Suzanne. And the question we have here is, how long have you lived in this district, and what are your top priorities for this district specifically?
Thank you. So I've been here for almost 13 years in District 1 in the same home. And my top priorities are very similar to many of the candidates. On the macro level, we're challenged with those complex issues related to fire, water, and housing. So bringing tangible solutions and outcomes in each of those areas, whether it's through technology and innovation in terms of detecting fires and mitigating and extinguishing them quickly. On the waterfront, creating an integrative water management system so that we're reducing urban water usage and we're increasing the use of wastewater. And on the housing front, coming up with thoughtful projects that relate to urban infill and do not alter dramatically the character of a neighborhood. But then on the micro level, as I've learned from my many walks throughout District 1, people just want to be heard. Locals feel forgotten. Locals feel that the attention is not focused on what matters to them, particularly traffic. I'm working with Slow Down Napa to create traffic calming solutions and also road repairs. Road repairs comes up quite a bit. So coming up with allocating the funds appropriately to fix our roads quickly and efficiently. And then of course, homelessness is an issue that comes up and the social services related to that and making sure that very vulnerable population receives the continuum of care that they need so that they're placed in supportive housing.
Thank you. And now David, same question.
I've lived here in District 1 since 1985. And I think that the evolution of the community that I've seen is both a blessing and I think also a case where a lot of people in the community feel left out. They don't feel like the winery and tourism industry really provide any benefits for them. I believe that we need to have workforce housing that's commensurate with the demands of the kinds of jobs that we are creating. I think the Napa general plan is, the city of Napa's general plan is a good step in the right direction, increasing density in the city of Napa. I believe that the water security issue is something that's hand in glove with climate change. I think we need to work very hard on reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. As a graduate of the Al Gore Climate Reality Project, I studied this very closely, and I have some very serious ideas about what we can do right away. And I think that transparency in our governance is something that people really crave right now, and I'm prepared to be very transparent, probably painfully so. Thank you.
Thank you. And Garrett?
Yes, well, being born and raised here, as many Napans, we move around the valley. I've been in District 1 twice. I've lived in District, which is now going to be District 2, Browns Valley. I've lived in District 4, and I've lived in District 5. Every day I work in most every district here in the valley, and being involved in construction and with the workforce, like I said many times, I can do book work, I can do backhoe work. I've seen a lot of the topography in various situations within the city and within the county. Obviously, as county supervisors, we need to be diverse and understanding all of the county. Your Carneros region is going to be entirely different with its soils and water than it is going to be, say, up Valley in Calistoga, especially when we talk about watersheds or when we talk about our water storage. Regarding homeless, the fact that I actually moved back into District 1 in order to run for this campaign. Homeless is something that is definitely prominent in our area. And the fact that I've had experience and still till today have experience working with the homeless, I see that as a great asset that I can offer to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joelle?
Thank you, Bernie. I've lived in District 1 20 years in 2 different homes, actually. My priorities for the district are very similar to my priorities for the county. I still believe that protecting ag and natural resources is at the top of the list for the district and for the county in general. And we have to actively, of course, respond to climate change. We should be looking at zero net energy buildings, especially in our downtown area. That is where most of the greenhouse gas emissions are coming from. I want to focus on residents and workforce and the needs of those. We need living wage jobs and housing that people can afford. We need access to healthcare and to government. I think that we need to bolster our public and mental health care so that the care we're providing is equitable. And we need to engage our immigrant community in a really meaningful way that respects diversity, culture, and language. I also think that building trust within the county and building trust between the county and the cities is paramount. And I'm very excited to see a public health and equity element that has been written for the new City of Napa general plan. So I'm excited about that going forward also.
Great, thank you. And now we'll move on to the next question. And this time, David, you will start. Are you concerned about the influence of money in politics? And if so, what would be your solutions? Oh, you're on mute again.
I'm sorry. First time. I think all the candidates will say that it's kind of eye-watering and eye-opening how much time and energy we have to devote to raising funds to fund our campaigns. I believe that the $4,900 limit is probably too high for a race, a local race. Mike Thompson can't raise $4,900 per donor per election cycle, so I don't know why we should be able to do that. The amount of, I mean, probably we're going to spend north of $75 for boat vote cast when all of our expenditures are put together. That's a lot of money. I'm not sure that it increases the level of engagement or the quality of the discourse. So I'm concerned that there's a perception that money can buy a seat at the supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you. And Garrett, same question to you.
Absolutely, along the same line. As far as money being an influence, that's been a concern for quite some time. And with recent events happening, more of a concern now with transparency. I have run my campaign. I have not taken any large donor finances from wineries or other establishments, institutions. I was asked by the people to run. I agreed to run on as lean as campaign as possible. If I figure like David said, if the people see our integrity, see our honesty, see our devotion to this community, that they should be able to vote on those principles that we list that will come out in the ballots. Pay to play is something I think across the board, whether it's in our county or city elected positions, but we definitely see that in our higher elected positions across the country. Politics has no business, absolutely no business, especially at a time right now when we have crises. We're talking about our groundwater, we're talking about the climate, and what does politics have to do with a safe place to live, a healthy place to live, and the right thing to do? I'm all about respect, and I think we can respect each other, drop the politics while we save our valley, and it'll be a better place. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joelle.
Thank you, Bernie. There really is no reason why we should need to raise the large amounts of money that we do to reach voters. I think that we should lower the donation limit, but we should also limit what can be spent on an election. I'd honestly rather see publicly funded elections so that everyone who chooses to run for office has the opportunity. It would really level the playing field and bring equity to the system. And of course, then we also need to deal with the independent expenditures. So there's a long way to go, but I am a big proponent for campaign finance reform.
Thank you. And Suzanne.
I too am 100% fine with reducing the limit. I think that campaigns are unfortunately very expensive. And as we've all learned, it's the first time running for all of us. And for me, as whatever the limit is, I'm happy with that. And you know, I think that once you set that limit, then the reform will come naturally. You know, for me, and many people know, I've received donations from former colleagues, my family and friends that believe in me from all chapters of my life. And so I think that, you know, if that limit is in place, then we should honor that. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. All right, next question. This time, Garrett, you will start. How do you envision balanced growth in Napa County that serves both local needs and the ag hospitality industries?
Oh, this is a big topic, isn't it? An important topic. To balance that out, we're going to have to come right back to resources again. We, you know, we're being pushed for pro-growth, and I understand the need to make money. We talk about raising taxes. It's a matter of raising enough to take care of our community. I intend on being more diligent as a board of supervisor and finding out where we can be a little more lean, if we can do a little bit better hiring and less outsourcing to save some of those funds and redirect those. But as far as blending the two with our ag and growth and where we should, I wouldn't be opposed to looking at something out in the corporate yard as far as something outside of the wine industry. Definitely we have climate changes that we're hearing about every day, and it is a concern moving forward. Can we add? If we can't add more vineyards, then we need to look at jobs for our children and the children of those vineyard owners. So I really think we should be looking more on the technical side and maybe do something out where we have existing facilities out by DMV in that corporate park area. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joelle, you're next.
Bernie, can you repeat the question quickly?
Certainly. How do you envision balanced growth in Napa County that serves both the local needs and the ag and hospitality industries needs?
Okay, great. Well, I think it's the same issues that we have been talking about all along, and these have been issues for Napa County for decades. We have to focus on the climate. The climate is going to drive our economy, frankly. Ag and protecting natural resources are not diametrically opposed. Ag absolutely depends on natural resources and the quantity and quality of those. And so that's incredibly important that we understand that, and we don't have these factions sort of fighting about that. I also think that there's a lot to do around wages. I've studied the North Bay Workforce Alliance data that's come out kind of recently, And what's really interesting is the most people who are employed in the food preparation and serving related industries. This is the third highest grossing industry in the county. However, in terms of workers' hourly earning, the industry ranks 23rd. So I think that there's a huge discrepancy between what businesses are actually making and what they are providing to their workers. So I think giving the workforce unfettered access to organizing is really, really essential to the ability of people in this community to make a decent wage and have healthcare and retirement benefits.
Thank you. And Suzanne?
Thank you. I think that, we went from a period of high growth that we've seen essentially for the last decade. And I think the best way to address that is to revisit, to go into the general plan a little earlier than planned. For me, we need to look at when the general plan was generated, it was a very different climate in which we find ourselves now. Many things have happened that have affected Napa dramatically, mainly the wildfires and our water situation. So if we look at those resources and assess what we have now and then focus the general plan on that, we can try or all strive for that balance. And I think also it relates to housing as well. So I think there's several pockets within Napa, particularly within the city limits of Napa, that need to be reimagined. You need to have the vision to repurpose them. One of them being the Napa Valley Commons area and several urban infill sites, several parking structures, the Safeway site. There's many of them that are sitting vacant or they can be utilized in a different way. But you need to be able to work with developers that understand that it can't be a condo canyon. It can't destroy the character of a neighborhood, but it needs to be something that can be integrated into the population and into the neighborhoods. So,
thank you. And David?
As chair of the Groundwater Sustainability Plan Advisory Committee, I was part of a process that took a very deep dive into rural water supply, especially on the floor of the Napa Valley. And we heard a lot of concerns about that. And I think that the water resource needs to be safeguarded and shared equitably. And we may be facing sooner than we thought the potential of reducing the amount of groundwater that's used for ag on the valley floor. And I think that if we can do that equitably and transparently, that's a good direction to head in. I am concerned that our tourism industry is very greenhouse gas intensive. And I think we really need to rein in the amount of resources that are devoted to like tourism generated emissions from travel and shipping wine, and all that needs to be looked at very carefully by the industry for the sake of the whole community. Finally, I'll say that the Farm Bureau has weighed in. I've known Peter Nissen for decades, and he authored a letter that basically said the Farm Bureau's point of view is that any restrictions on growth are a danger to the entire ag industry and the future of wine and winemaking in this county, and that's just ridiculous. I mean, it's a red herring. It's meant to gin up a bunch of concerns that are really unwarranted, and I think it's kind of disrespectful of our ability to plan together for a sound future for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we will move on to the next question. And Joelle, you will start this time. What problems and opportunities do you see, and how our county budget resources are allocated? And what specifically would you propose to do to include more voices in the budget process and making the results understandable and transparent?
Okay, Bernie, that was like
That's a mouthful.
Hard question.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I actually have a lot of concerns about transparency at the county level and around budget transparency. I'm a member of a committee on the Community Leaders Coalition called Open and Transparent Government. And basically we formed that to try to find ways to make the budget actually more accessible to the people that live here. In many communities, they do a budget roadshow, for example. So when they're putting the budget together, they actually go out to the various communities and have a town hall and talk about the budget and help people understand the budget and go through it and really show how the budget links to community priorities. And the budget needs to link to community priorities. That's first and foremost. And then we need to be able to tell people about how it does that. I also am in favor of performance-based budgeting. So I don't think that it makes sense to just sort of give the same amount of money all the time to every department, regardless of performance, regardless of outcomes, regardless of the current conditions in the community. We need to look really carefully at, you know, what is happening in the community? What are the needs? What are the emerging needs of the community? So that's very important as well. I think there are lots of ways that we could be doing this. We hold budget sessions during the day when most people are working and they can't make it. We don't do it in Spanish. I mean, there's a myriad of different ways that we can be engaged in the community and in a more open and transparent way. And I think we'd have a better budget process and ultimately a better budget that people would understand and that they would get on board, and we've been moving forward as an entire community.
Thank you. And Suzanne, would you like me to repeat that?
Sure, go ahead.
What problems and opportunities do you see and how the county budget resources are allocated? And what would you propose to include more voices in the budget process and make the results more understandable and transparent?
Thank you. As an attorney, I'm bound by ethical, guidelines that as a member of the California Bar. So I too am a big fan of transparency and being an open book. I think that one of the first things I'm going to do as supervisor is do a deep dive into the county and figure out what's going right and what's going wrong. And one of the main issues is the budget. I think a lot of times with these very, very large budgets, there's automatic spending on certain issues, and we need to look at the outcomes and what has come out of these programs and other things. Recently, they just passed with the funding received from the American Rescue Plan and the trust fund, the ability to fast track ADUs to address the housing issue. Things like that, that's a great thing. There's an immediate need and a desperate need. And to be able to move funds quickly and efficiently to that need is really what I'm all about. And honestly, with a business background coming from the private sector, you have just a different perspective of a budget when you've worked, for the dollar and we know how to stretch the dollar in a different way. And finally, I think that the public is ready for tangible solutions, being able to translate that to them. Being bilingual has been extremely helpful, especially when interacting with the Hispanic community here, which our district has probably the largest of the Latinos. So I think that having bilingual town halls, having in their community centers, deep where we can interact with them and have them understand that the county is working for them.
Thank you very much. David.
Once again, I think all of us have had the experience of trying to decode a rather intricate and detailed budget document. It's the amount of money that the county spends is large. It's a lot of it is from outside government transfers from state and federal sources, but a large part of it does come from locally generated revenue. I think it does need to be very much more transparent. As a member of the board of the Napa Sanitation District, I am very proud of our budget communication process. The sanitation district is a different animal than the county in the sense it's a very capital intensive process. It doesn't have as many dimensions as the county government does, but I'm very proud of the fact that our rates are flat and that we have a AA+ bond rating, and that we have a very open budget process. And we have good labor relations with our unionized workforce. And I think I can bring that, I know I can bring that expertise to bear in the case of the county's budget, which needs to be communicated much more effectively and clearly to the people who are affected by it.
Thank you. And Garrett.
Thank you. This is a big topic for me, important topic for me as a business owner for the last 37 years. And currently I'm working on a project in Nigeria, solar project that will pan out just under $1 billion. I understand the micromanagement necessities, even at that level. Sometimes things get out of hand when you're dealing with it. We're a little over $500 million to be clear, budget here in the Napa County. One thing that I suggested, I think I wrote that out to the Vision 2050, was possibly an electronic board. As mentioned by other candidates, the ability for our citizens to attend county board meetings at 9 a.m. Or even at 12 or 1, in the afternoon is very difficult. People are working, they are struggling here to pay their bills and stay afloat. So an electronic board out, say downtown somewhere, would not only make it more readily available, it would also, I think, integrate the community and get people to talk about important things. More in-house specialists, I've talked about that a couple times so that we don't have to outsource, again, like a business. If I have a bunch of apprentices out on your job site, I could have 3 guys at $30 an hour and 1 guy that I pay at $80 an hour can do it in a third of the time than even the 3 guys. So specialists in-house are definitely important, and less politics involved that have led to recent wasting of huge amounts of money, like this last $500,000 check that was written regarding the Sheriff Crawford. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Suzanne, you will start on this question. What actions would you propose the Board of Supervisors take to address our climate emergency? And would you commit to the 2030 deadline for net zero emissions like the other cities and towns have done?
Yes, I think that's a great idea. I think that everyone is kind of coming to this critical apex where we can't wait anymore. The climate change issue has been knocking on our door, for many years. So there's a lot of things that we can do. Number one, I think building green is huge, to be able to create LEED certified buildings and structures that we can reduce the emissions is huge. I think we can increase our electric car fleet within the county. I just saw today the electric fire engine that's in the Los Angeles Fire Department. So I thought that was a great idea. And, and I've been studying these car shares, electric car shares in other rural areas in the Central Valley. So implementing basically successful solutions that have worked in other pockets of California and bringing them here. And I think that we need to be sort of at the cutting edge of innovation and in terms of climate change. We can't talk about creating a committee and a task force and then nothing happens. So for me, I'm all about getting things done. You can talk to any of my clients, colleagues, and friends, and I'm a woman of action, and I'm someone that is a true problem solver, and I will bring that to the climate change issue.
Thank you. And David, to you.
An example of policy gone sideways is the fact that the new jail is not, it says 200,000 square feet of roof space. It has no photovoltaics planned for that. It has 6 electric charging stations, and it plans to use fossil gas to run its heat and hot water and cooking. That is an example of old thinking. We need to have an all-electric REACH building code. We need to retrofit our rental housing stock so that it's as energy efficient as possible and as fossil gas free as possible. These things are not technically difficult. We have millions of square feet of roof space on the warehouses in the county and in American Canyon and the city of Napa. Very little of that has solar panels on it. It would be really important in my mind that we locally generate power that we consume locally. So these things are not difficult. A build out of an electric vehicle charging network is not hard. These things are all within reach. We can decarbonize the hospitality industry. So we need to get these things started yesterday. And I think we need to change how we think about what's possible and what we need to do.
Thank you. And Garrett.
Absolutely. This is a tough topic for me. It take quite a lengthy time to explain everything with my experience in the electrical business and solar, understanding solar. There's a tremendous amount of carbon that's burned, not only to create the solar panels, to create the batteries, but to provide the electricity that we charge our electric cars with, and hopefully a greater amount in the future. But we can be conservationists and conserve, especially other areas and avenues that we can, like some of the local burning, some of the local emissions that happen from the gross diesels. And we really need to look in being more self-sustaining with the products that we utilize. It may cost more to use things like glass as opposed to plastic. When we look at a country like China, who has increased, I think between 2005 and I want to say 2014, maybe 2018, they increased their emissions like 80%. But yet we continue to buy products from them, and we continue to ship those over in diesel barges. So we really have to be careful and think, what can we do locally? And I know we can do it because we have an amazing, amazing community here, a lot of intellect. But we really need to look at so many different aspects to make this happen. But it is an absolute must. We've got to get going now. Thank you.
Thank you. Joelle.
First of all, yes, on the 2030 mandate for zero net emissions, we have some low hanging fruit like banning gas powered leaf blowers, banning glyphosate, electrifying the county fleet, electrifying appliances, the solar on warehouses, zero net energy on county buildings. Great point David made, the jail is not there. And then we also have policy opportunities. So completing and implementing a robust climate action plan is essential. We need to protect our watershed lands. We should be monitoring our wells because if we don't, the state's going to do it, and we want to maintain local control. I think that's really, really important. We need to work together, the counties and the city. We should not be working as separate jurisdictions. We should be working in concert with each other. And I do think we should support Napa Green. I think Napa Green is emerging into something really incredible. And that way we can also assure that we really have green farms and green wineries.
Great, thank you. And for this next question, David, you will start. What do you believe are the primary areas of concern and interest for the Deputy Sheriff's Association, and what actions would you take to represent and address those interests and concerns?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the beginning of that question. If you would repeat it, please.
Yes. What do you think are the primary areas of concern and interest for the Deputy Sheriff's Association? And what specific actions would you take to represent and address those?
Public safety, both fire and policing, is a very, very big part of the county budget. And I think that in the last several years, we've seen the need for harnessing mental health care interventions in many situations where we have a police response now, and we may need a more broad kind of response that does involve conventional policing, but it's augmented by more resources to address people who are in crisis. We certainly, I mean, I think that this is not something the supervisors can do anything about, but I think the proliferation of guns in our society is a travesty, but I don't want to be accused of virtue signaling, so I'll change the subject. I think that the profession of public safety needs to be honored, and it needs to be fostered in a way that it thinks of the welfare of people beyond just law breaking or law enforcement, but also includes things that are responses to things like thoughtful responses to incidents of domestic violence or child abuse, or people who are in crisis because of they can't find a place to live. I mean, there are a lot of things that we respond with policing when we need to have a bigger, wider response.
Thank you, David. And now Garrett, same question to you.
Concerns of the deputies. Now more than ever, it's very concerning to see so many deputies talk about, whether they would relocate, and not just in our town, across the nation. We're at a time where too many tragedies have happened, And we have an amazing network of deputies here, both in the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department. And I am concerned that they feel their hands are tied. They put their lives in danger for us every day. I know we have what seems to be a sleepy little town, but behind the scenes, when we have issues with knives or guns or domestic violence, they're there. They're on the spot. They're there to help us and to protect us. And for them in any way, shape, or form to feel concerned about their job, whether or not they should take action to protect someone and possibly be reprimanded and or lose their job, is something that we cannot tolerate. So we can't just leave them blindly and say, oh, they need to do a better job. I think we need more integration programs and to make our great men even greater through other maybe mental health courses and whatnot to help them deal with situations better. But we have to give them the absolute as much support as we can, because without them, we would not have our safety. And for ourselves, for our children, for our families, it's definitely a high priority. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joelle?
I believe the DSA is concerned that their members are fairly compensated and have good health and retirement benefits. Additionally, I think that people who work at Napa County should have the capacity to live here. A lot of our sheriff's deputies don't. And they need to know that they can afford to live where they work. We also need to assure public safety and law enforcement professionals receive excellent training, equipment, and technology that can prevent violence and crime before it occurs. This is known as POP, or problem-oriented policing, which is a program being used by the current Sheriff's Department. I think it's key that you need to partner with community organizations that serve high need and high risk individuals. When I was with COPE, we built collaborative relationships, the Napa PD, to really serve our highest need communities. On the Child Abuse Prevention Council, we brought together law enforcement, child welfare, domestic violence services, et cetera, to find ways to cooperatively serve the community, to reduce trauma and build resilience in the community.
Thank you. And Suzanne?
So I grew up surrounded by law enforcement with many relatives and friends wearing the uniform. And I have always had the utmost respect for law enforcement, as they do place their lives on the line every day to protect the community. I think that we have an incredible opportunity to focus on recruitment and broaden the pool from which we draw our candidates for law enforcement. We can create a diversified and larger police force. And as supervisor, I want to create more channels of communication within the community, and I want to work closely with the DSA. I feel as though in District 1, each pocket of the district has different needs and concerns, and I want to hold monthly rotating meetings in each of these pockets alongside the DSA to ensure that our community feels safe and protected. And at the end of the day, you know, these officers, they want to know that as supervisors, we have their back. And I think healthcare is probably one of the main issues where sometimes it's not the most efficient channel. When somebody is injured on the job, they have to go through several hoops in order to obtain the healthcare or the physical therapy that they need. So I would certainly look at creating a more efficient healthcare access system for them.
Thank you. And now with this question, Garrett, you will be first. What are your legislative priorities at the county and state level?
Okay, I was waiting for the rest. The last was so long. My priorities at the county level are going to be economic, because we talk about, you know, the state pushing on us with the arena numbers that we need more housing. We need more housing. We hear that we need more business. We need more revenue here. But again, it has to be a collaborative effort that we're actually able to raise the funds, generate the revenue to make that happen. That happens by taxes, which is the easy peasy way to do it, which nobody wants, nobody needs. As we heard throughout the evening tonight, people are struggling in this community as our real estate's increased. So that really doesn't seem like an option to me. So we need to look at other opportunities to take our existing network of workers and work together more efficiently so that we can find additional funds within our community, or find additional resources like we did with the toilet retrofit program a decade and a half ago to generate more water. We can stop wasting some of the water that we do on blow-offs. I think they said 1/10 of 1% of the water gets blown off down the septic. That doesn't sound like a lot, but that's quite a few million gallons. We could store that and utilize that for Carneros and other regions, so that when we do have those dry seasons, we have that water available. So it's going to be a big job working with the state. We do have to push back on the state because we need common sense. They need to understand that we do have limited resources, and in the interim, we'll do our due diligence to make it happen.
Thank you. And Joelle.
Well, I think locally, passing and implementing a climate action plan is really important. It's been in draft form for almost 4 years now. We really need to get ahead of the climate situation by really looking at what we can do legislatively, locally. There's a lot happening at the state level, but we need to do that locally. I think that we really should get moving on the EIR for the next general plan. We're using a lot of backward-looking data. 2022 is not 2008, and we need to be using current science and be looking at, projections going forward instead of looking backward. I think that we need some local preference ordinances for housing so that people that live and work here actually have opportunities for housing before people who don't live or work here. I think it's interesting to look at something like an empty home tax that's being, something's coming up in other jurisdictions around the state to deal with second homes. And I think at the state level, it'd be interesting to see how we can create employee housing while still promoting and respecting fair housing at the same time.
Thank you. And Suzanne.
I think it's very important to have a good relationship with the state, but also not be afraid to push back. I'm thankful to have great relationships and interactions with people at the state level and have them recognize that Napa really is a unique pocket in a unique county within California. I would, in terms of legislative priorities, I think that transportation is a huge opportunity as it relates to climate change. I think that we can focus on shaping policies that incentivize people to go green, so that we have the climate change issue which come into play. And finally, I think that the transparency is important. I think that we need to refocus our energies on bringing the legislation clear policies so that the public understands it.
Thank you. And David.
I think we need to look at our land use process from the point of view of a bigger scale, a watershed scale perspective. We need to have land capability analysis that encompasses each of our watersheds. We need to be mindful of our role in being a link between the inner coast range and the Pacific Ocean to the west of us for many, many species. I think we need to have a robust joint fact-finding process that guides how we make decisions, because I think we've seen the dueling expert model is a big waste of time, and it doesn't serve the interests of the environment or the community or even people who are proposing projects, because they don't know what they have a huge amount of uncertainty that's unnecessary and doesn't serve the public interest. I think we already know what the main sources of emissions are, and so between reducing transportation emissions and reducing building emissions, we know what to do, and we need to start working on a building codes and transportation planning that reflects what we know and what we have the ability to change immediately.
Thank you. And this time, Joelle, we will start with you. How do you see the Board of Supervisors working on regional issues like transportation, drought, wildfires, water sources, and sea level rise?
Can I ask for clarification? When you say regional, do you mean county-wide, or do you mean the larger region, including other counties?
including other counties, talking about the
Okay.
Bay Area.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Well, there are a lot of opportunities to work with other Bay Area counties. We work with them as we work, boards of supervisors work with each other, have conversations, build relationships. I think that it's really, really important that we build relationships. That's first and foremost. During this campaign, I had a conversation with Linda Hopkins, who is a supervisor over in Sonoma County. She was also on their First Five Commission, and I've been told a lot about Linda and have a lot of respect for her. I asked her, what are some of the ways that we can be working more closely as counties? She said, absolutely, on the wildfire issue, we should be working much more closely with our partners in other counties. So that's one example. I think that we have to look at, of course, as you said, the transportation issues, none of these climate, transportation, none of these things knows boundaries. So we have to look at, working with the Metropolitan, Transportation Authority. Napa's always had good representation there and has been able to affect a lot of change there. So we need to continue and build on those relationships and be a really good partner to our regional partners.
Thank you. And Suzanne.
I think that as supervisor, it's really important to take action and it's not only about deciding where funds get allocated or the weekly board meetings, but it's also serving on these committees on a regional basis where you can advocate for Napa and learn from other counties. So communication is key, and you do that by actively serving and working on these, such as the MVTA and many others related to the region. Particularly on the fire and waterfront, we're all dealing with the same issues. And I think that as supervisor, you need to look at what we learned from both 2017 and 2020. In fact, 2017, we were at the mercy of the wind, and the fire basically blew from the hillside in Carneros into Sonoma. So we really are, sister counties, and particularly when it comes to these fire, water issues, I think it's important to have consistent communication with the supervisors and the departments on those levels.
Thank you. And David.
In developing our groundwater plan, I realized that it was very important that we have a dialogue with the Sonoma groundwater planning process, because they are dealing with many of the same environmental challenges in terms of fisheries resources, conservation, habitat analysis, habitat safeguarding. So I suggested to Senator Dodd that he actually look at the needs for resource conservation in both Napa and Sonoma together, so that we would be going together as a united front, because we have a lot of the same needs in terms of what we need to monitor. In terms of fire, in addition to reading our own CWPP, I actually just recently read Sonoma's, and I'm very aware of the success of the Northern Sonoma Fire District. They were able to do 500 acres of prescribed burning last year. There are a lot of resources that are regional for things like that. And I think we need to really think more regionally rather than less regionally. And of course, we've got things like the Highway 37 corridor with sea level rise affecting that. There are so many regional ties that we have with the other 8 counties, all of whom are bigger than we are. But I think we punch above our weight, and people respect the work of our supervisors and our staff in regional solutions. And I think that needs to be built on.
Thank you. Sorry. Garrett, same question.
Yes, I'll try to make it quicker. Absolutely. Dealing in construction and dealing across local borders here and across our international borders, I see it paramount to share with other supervisorial positions in our outlying counties. We, as a construction company, we worked in San Francisco for quite some time. And what was really nice is as things changed in the industry here in the Bay Area, they eventually changed in Napa. So seeing things that came to light in San Francisco that came to light in Napa, could be a couple years later, a decade later, is absolutely beneficial. And we talk about the climate changing. We have no master control of which direction it's going. We think that we do think we know which direction it's going, unfortunately. But looking at other areas, to say we look out towards the coastal areas of the Bay Areas, as we change, it will pay for us to consult with them and understand how their environments are, how their wind shifts are, how their soils are with saturation, with brackish water, things like that coming in. If we are going to increase in any level, we're going to increase in those contents as well. So vast 50, 100-mile radius, absolutely. Let's go find out what's going to happen in our outlying counties before it happens here. Thank you.
Thank you. And this time, Suzanne, we will start with you with this question. How will you engage different segments of the community, including the underrepresented and diverse communities, along with nonprofits, businesses, et cetera?
So again, the ability to be being fully bilingual has been so helpful, particularly in campaigning, and I plan to continue to do that on a monthly basis. I think that the town hall interactions, it's hard to get people there, so you have to go out in the community, and I've already sort of divided the district into quadrants where you can really interact with each different pocket. As I mentioned earlier, that each one of them really has different needs and concerns, whether it's Westwood area to East Napa to downtown Napa and so on and so forth. So I'll be fully accessible. I think that social media and Zoom has been a great benefit for a lot of people, and particularly I think it's important to hold meetings and be there outside of working hours. And I've worked hard all my life. I'm ready to work for the people of Napa and listen to their concerns. So for me, it's been a great joy actually interacting and learning from the constituents and figuring out solutions for them.
Thank you. And David? Oh, you're on mute.
I'll learn eventually. There's a saying in marketing that about the time you get tired of saying is about the time people start to get it. I think all the electeds at all levels, city council, supervisor, state assembly and senate, federal representation, we all need to be more transparent and less in our own bubble and more reaching out to the community. I like all the other candidates, have really benefited from door-to-door canvassing, because you get to find out what's on people's minds. You're going to them. And so I think that engaging with through the schools with parents about county issues, I think having internship programs for Napa students to have positions where they can have summer jobs in county government, that would be a really good way to build a bridge to the community. I think that just being out and about, I think, Brad Wagenknecht has set a really good example for this district in terms of being a tireless person. He walks, he reaches out, he is so open to what people have to say and what their concerns are, that I think that's something we have to build on, as all the supervisors need to do that and live by his example. And I hope to live up to that.
Thank you. And Garrett?
Couldn't get it off mute there, sorry. Engaging our Hispanic community, something I've been doing for the last 37 years. Being a Chicano helps, but at any level. And I will say that, not to be biased or not fair to any other candidate, I've noticed being out in the field, the construction field, just talking and saying, hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Quiere ir aquí? Or quiere comprar una desayuno, breakfast or something, anything, any little thing that you can say that shows I care. I want you to be part of this community. I want you to feel equal. We do have a problem still, not much like we did 30, 40 years ago when I was growing up. But the integration, when we still have segregation and separation, is a fine line that we really have to be careful with. Many Hispanics want to, of course, keep their cultural backgrounds, with their cultural stores and whatnot, and their little micro communities. But we really need to push. Do as I do. Invite them to your parties. Do as I do. At least say something in Spanish so that that edge comes down, and show them that you really care. We can do this, and we can do it in short order. I know any one of us on this forum today, everybody's got a great heart that's on here. So I know that any one of us can do it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Joelle.
Sorry, thanks. Well, I think at the county level, we should be proclaiming racism a public health crisis, as has been done in other cities in our county, and reviewing all our county policies, for example, to ensure that they're equitable and inclusive. We also should create a plan to engage our immigrant community and have a robust language access plan. I've been working with marginalized communities for over 20 years through my leadership at COPE and at First Five, working with and for low-income families, people of color, LGBTQ families, and we've created anti-racism programming and education, for example. It's really important that we have a focus on real people and real needs like jobs and housing and childcare, and that those be our priorities. And just like David said, I use Brad as a model of accessibility. My plan is to be every bit as accessible as Brad has been over the last 20 years. And that is something I'm looking forward to continuing to reaching out both in the district and throughout the county.
Great, thank you. And now, David, you will be first on this question. What ideas do you have to make the county economy more resilient and sustainable?
I think we have the opportunity to have safeguarding of resources that is every bit up to the reputation of our wine industry, which is world leading. We need to have a world-class climate action plan. We need to have a world-class groundwater sustainability plan. We need to have a world-class landscape scale planning process for our watersheds to safeguard sensitive species and our precious water resources while recognizing the impacts of the climate crisis on the environment. So I think that we need to start from a point of saying we can do better, and we are reminds me of the old joke, by golly, we can do this together. We need to be with the resources and the wealth that are flowing through this county. We need to harvest some of that and be as absolutely at the top of our game, because there's so much at risk. The what's gone, we can't be complacent about our success, because the environment in which we are entering threatens that success, and we need to be very nimble to be resilient and responsive and to bring everybody along in the community so that we don't have haves and have-nots.
Thank you. Garrett.
There we go. Resilient and sustainable.
Yep.
We just want to be clear. We're back to conservation again, but we need to look at new, more progressive ways of doing business here, doing business in the ag industry. Even with our wastewater, things that we can do in-house. I'm a big proponent to water recycling, gray water recycling, as that water is precious. There's no reason that we can't do that. More on the micro level. Our wineries go through a tremendous amount of water supply. I'm out there on the job sites. I see so much getting washed. Hoses, almost hydrant type of power, behind the water supplies being used to wash down equipment, wash down driveways and whatnot. We really need to look into reclamation of that and push, even, like I said, into the gray water and have those filtration systems on site. Other countries even go to the extent of burning off their waste, their actual physical waste, into a powder that could be utilized as a fertilizer, and many other ways. We only got 90 seconds, but drilling down and looking at all the opportunities to be absolutely more efficient and saving our resources, so that we have resources for the future, so that we have spare water, spare soils, etc. Thank you.
Thank you. Joelle,
Bernie, can you say again the question?
certainly. What ideas do you have to make our county economy more resilient and sustainable?
Okay, thank you. I think I answered this a little bit earlier when I talked about wages. I really do think that it's important that we give people the opportunity to earn a living wage. And a lot of that does come through something called the labor peace agreements. When you are developing agreements with commercial developers, you can have an agreement that they will not that they will give their workers unfettered access to organizing if they so choose. I think that's the path to a living wage, and it's incredibly important, and we need to be doing it rather than talking about it. We also need project labor agreements for large public projects. We need a robust climate action plan, of course, that shows that Napa County is a leader in protecting resources and lowering greenhouse gas emissions. Also, I think the mental health of our community is very important. We have community trauma, individual and community trauma from all of the natural disasters that we have been through. And we need to be a community that is healthy and people are thriving. And that is a place that people will want to visit again and again.
Great, thank you. And Suzanne.
Thank you. And it is somewhat related to my previous responses as well. In terms of making the economy resilient, we really need to focus on addressing the climate change issues. And I was actually just at the Napa Firewise Fair this morning, and protecting our economy means being prepared for fires. So home hardening, different components of creating a mitigation suppression plan, so that what happened in 17 and 20 never happens again. Our economy lost billions of dollars during that period. We basically froze for 10 days. So at that point, wages were lost, people were not working. It was just a very tragic time. So I do think that the fire should be at the forefront. I think that agriculture is the highest and best use. It's what has put Napa on the map, and not only as one of the great wine regions in the country, if not the world, but I think we can also diversify some of our economy as well. I think that there's a lot of creative industries that want to be in Napa. People have learned that they can work remotely in terms of their companies. So if we diversify, we can. It should be something that's related to agriculture, as complementary to agriculture, health and wellness, for example, while still keeping our Napa intact in the beautiful rural setting that we find ourselves.
Thank you. And for this question, Garrett, you will start. We've covered some of this before. What can you do as a member of Board of Supervisors to address issues of homelessness and lack of affordable housing? What would you do to ensure that we don't lose any of the affordable housing we have now, like some of the trailer parks, and people have asked questions about rent stabilization?
I find it hard to believe that this community, after knocking on over 2,000 doors, would approve in any way, shape, or form losing any housing. The question I get is how do we get more housing for the homeless? Now, the actual numbers that are out there, they've been purported somewhere between a few hundred to 700. I've asked the people on the street, it seems somewhere in the middle of there. I know that we're working at South Coombs on a redevelopment there, but I always say we need an A to Z program. I've helped some of these people get off the street. I wish I could, I wish I had a bigger home and a bigger heart and a bigger wallet. But as a community, we absolutely can do it. But an A to Z program is first analyzing those homeless. Why are they homeless? Do they have mental health issues that we desperately need to form a real program for? Are they just missing opportunity? I've had people graduate from college and end up homeless because they made some bad choices in life. And then we have a couple that are out there and they actually enjoy being out there, utilizing the system and utilizing our public services. So I would absolutely push, like I said, A to Z. Make sure those that are coming into housing can sustain to be in a house by themselves. And once they are there, make sure that we give them their dignity and allow them to progress into society, have the right jobs, whether they're scholastically intelligent or whether they're good with their hands and they want to go into the trades. Sorry, I'm out of time.
Thank you. And Joelle?
Great, thank you, Bernie. About 5 years ago, I started with several other people, the Napa Housing Coalition, and we have been for the last 5 years promoting housing that is affordable throughout the county. There are some great projects that are coming online for permanent supportive housing for people who were formerly homeless. And that's a result of city and county collaboration. We have a housing and homeless director at the city level, city of Napa level, and also at the county. That's a great new position that was created at the city so that we can really work together on issues around homelessness. I see that changing enormously. I think it's important too to dispel myths about homelessness. Over 50% of the people in our shelters work every day. And about 30% of our homeless have mental health and or substance abuse issues. So it's not the majority. Most people who are homeless simply cannot afford housing. Just like many people in this community. I love the Heritage Housing Partners new development on Old Sonoma Road. They're bringing a mixed income rent and own model to the city of Napa. We need to see more of that. A local preference ordinance, as I mentioned before, would be great. And I'm running out of time, so thank you.
All right, thank you. And Suzanne?
I think that one of the great successes has been Project Room Key, which came out actually because of the pandemic, where hotels or underutilized hotels and motels were being converted into proper living situations for those that were homeless. And I do think that it's important to have this continuity of care for homeless, and those that are in a program. Many times they start a program, but there's no one monitoring them 15, 30 days, 45 days out. So I would like to take a sort of a deep dive into that continuity of care and look at the success stories and what worked and what didn't. I do feel as though it's true that many of them work already, even though they are homeless, but increasing that job opportunity, giving them a role and a sense of purpose does change the trajectory from off the streets and into supportive housing.
Great, thank you. And David? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm so eager to answer that I forget to unmute. So Bernie, did you ask, was there a rent stabilization portion of this question? Would you?
Well, it was, and it was like, would you ensure that we don't lose any more housing? And some people asked, would you support rent stabilization as well?
I think that the loss of the affordable housing that is in the form of trailers is that cannot happen. Most of that housing is inside the city limits, but there are some examples outside the city limits that need to be safeguarded. It's inherently hard to stabilize with what most people would understand as rent control. Any housing that's been built since in the last 30 years under the Costa-Hawkins Act. So it's a kind of a blunt instrument, and it's precluded by state legislation. But that said, my wife and I live not far away from the housing that will be afforded down at the end of Coombs and Imola from the conversion of the former what was it, the Wine Valley Lodge? I forget the name, what it was before, but obviously the continuum of care approach is important, but on the other hand, we just read in the San Francisco Chronicle the tragedy of SROs that quote unquote house people, but really don't meet their needs.
Sorry, ran out of time there. And actually, we are starting to run out of time. And so we are going to go to closing statements. And we thank you for the answers to all those questions. And we are going to do it in the opposite order of the opening. So we will actually start with Garrett, 1.5 minutes as well.
Okay, I'll recap on tonight. Major topics that are of my concern that came up tonight are natural resources. Obviously, being a conservator of the taxpayers' hard-earned money applies right into conservation. We have to be better conservationists of our water and of our soils and of our development so that we can mitigate any further deterioration of that. Money in politics, it's another big issue right now within the Board of Supervisors. Fortunately for the community, I've said this in the past, we have an election now. We have 2 elected positions that are coming up for 2 separate districts. So trust and transparency being top of the list right now for the community will be by the voters. They actually have a voice in that now. And pay to play is absolutely not on my plate. I will always do what is right for the people, right for the community. If it's right and it happens to be a large winery owner and a friend of mine, and it's good for the community and good for our long term, then we move forward. We're running out of time here. Last thing, racism. I don't like racism. Having a Hispanic background and heritage really bothers me. The more we talk about racism, it seems like the more that we have it. The more that we go out and shake hands and at least attempt to integrate and talk with the Hispanic community, invite them to your parties, invite them to your homes, invite them to go hiking and become more like the rest of us, the faster we will get there and the less we have to hear the word racism. Homelessness, I think we talked about that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's okay.
And David.
And I'm not on mute. Amazing. I think that the totality of my life experience really makes the idea of public service and being a servant central to what my term as supervisor would be. I think that the rupture between factions in our community, the belief that there's kind of a tribal, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, where we really need to create solutions that are about the entire community's well-being. We have so much wealth in this region. We have so much wealth in our county. We need to make sure that that wealth is shared, that the lives of every member of our community is respected, and that everybody has the opportunity to thrive with safe housing, better wages, and more fulfilling ability to reach multi-generational success. And I think that a servant's attitude is the right way to do that, and I think I can offer that.
Thank you. And Suzanne.
Thank you. As we all know, local leadership has never mattered more. We are facing one of the most important elections that Napa has seen in decades, and it can truly shape the landscape of Napa forever. I feel as though we need leaders that understand the importance of sustainable agriculture while also allowing local businesses to grow responsibly, somebody who's going to be there for the community and address the complex housing issues and address climate change. The idea of allowing sustainable agriculture and businesses to grow responsibly, that they're not mutually exclusive. We can make that happen. We can accomplish that together. And as I said before, I've worked very hard all of my life, and I'm ready to work and to serve the people of Napa. You can tell the people of the District 1 are ready for a fresh perspective, new blood, and innovative ideas. And even people at the state level recognize my leadership, which is why I've been endorsed by Senator Artores, former head of the California Democratic Party, Senate Majority Leader Emeritus Bob Hertzberg, State Treasurer Fiona Ma, and many more top leaders to be announced. And at the local level, I'm so happy to share that I've been endorsed by the North Bay Leadership Council, the Napa County Farm Bureau, former Mayor Jill Teckle, Mary Louros, Bernie, and dozens of community leaders. I have always prided myself on the ability to execute with clarity of thought. And when elected as Napa County Supervisor, I will continue to do just that. I sincerely look forward to working with all of you on a path forward for our Napa community. And I ask for your vote and for your support on or before June 7th. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. And Joelle.
Thanks, Bernie. Sorry. So I believe that my 30 years as a public servant in our community has made me the most prepared and most qualified person to serve District 1. I am not ready to lead. I am leading and will continue to lead. I've cultivated relationships and have done the work. So if I'm elected, I will hit the ground running. I'm proud to say my endorsements include District 1 Supervisor Brad Wagenknecht, Napa Mayor Scott Sedgley, American Canyon Mayor Leon Garcia, the Democrats of Napa Valley, the DCC, the Napa Sierra Club, the Napa Solano Building Trades Council, the Napa Solano Central Labor Council, the National Union of Healthcare Workers, and many other elected and appointed leaders and organizations. I'm the daughter of a school teacher and a police officer. I've lived my values since day one. If we care for the people and the planet, our economy will thrive and everyone will have the opportunity to live their best life. I live my values every day as a county supervisor. I'll listen to all perspectives and co-create solutions with you that work for all community members. I look forward to earning your vote.
Thank you. And on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Napa County and all the community members that participated in submitting questions, we really appreciate your time to participate in this forum and for your willingness to serve the Napa community. We are truly lucky to have people who are willing to do that. Thank you. And now I'll turn the evening back over to Joyce.
Thank you. We especially want to thank the audience for joining this session to meet the candidates and for proposing their thoughtful questions. And we apologize if we didn't get to some of your questions. Hopefully you can contact the candidates and they can answer some outstanding questions for you. For further information on the candidates and ballot measures, links to our Voters Edge guide and other election information can be found on the League's easy-to-use website, LWVNapa.com. If you would like to be involved with the League, with the men and women helping make democracy work for everyone, it's easy to join. Just, again, visit our website. A reminder that the deadline to register to vote and still get a ballot in the mail is May 23rd. You can register and vote conditionally in person until 8 p.m. on June 7th at a vote center or the election office. If you have moved or changed your name or wish to change your party affiliation since you last registered, you need to re-register. If you vote by mail in Napa County, you can avoid any postal delivery delays by using one of the many drop boxes in Napa, and you do not need postage. All drop boxes in some voter centers will be available on May 9th. The election department would like us to announce that they are still in the need for more vote center workers. The pay is good for a few weeks of work. For details, see the County of Napa elections webpage. Last but not least, please encourage your family, friends, and neighbors to vote in this election. Remember, every vote counts. Thank you and good evening.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Night.